Parker, what's up, my friend? How's the last week been
Not
like for
much.
you?
It's been busy, man, but it's been good overall. I'm excited to finally be getting to it on Saturday.
Absolutely. At first you're taking on Josh Copeland. About a week ago, opponent changed. Garrett, now you're fighting. What's that whole process been like, adapting last second like this to a new opponent?
Um, it's never easy. We do what we got to do. That's why we're professionals, man. We make the adjustments. We roll with the punches. No pun intended. Um, and We're gonna get after it. We got the show must go on. So you can't have the main event drop out just because somebody can't make it.
Absolutely. The last time we talked, you were getting ready to fight Dylan Kleckler. Obviously went out there, had a great performance, man. Big first round finish. Looking back at it, man, what are the thoughts on that performance? Pretty happy with it?
Pretty happy. I would have been happier if I didn't get dropped, but it happens. you know, get back up and go finish the job.
Absolutely. Now you're 2-0 in this platform. I think fans for a long time have wanted you to try the bare knuckle side of things. It really fits your style. How much fun are you having in it?
So much fun, man. Like I wish I got into this so much sooner. I'm so happy I found it. Yeah, the fit's been great. The company's been awesome. BKFC guys are treating me awesome. Um, Hometown fights are obviously a big advantage and big fun experience for me overall. I mean, I just love fighting in front of a crowd regardless, but to be able to do it right in my own backyard has been even better.
One thing that's pretty cool is you're fighting with similar guys on the cards for all these fights so far. You have that Rico DeShulo on this one again, Slippery Pete Barrett again, a bunch of these bigger names from that area that you're in. Is it pretty cool to share a stage with them?
Yeah. I do. These guys, like everybody in New England knows each other. It's as big as the area is. The community's pretty small and well known with each other. Everybody's usually got pretty good rapport with everybody, and it just it's like a family gathering. Like your annual family get together. You're like, hey, how you been? Oh, hey, what's going on? It's fun, man. It's nothing but love out here.
You were really doing this for such a long time, man. I mean, you began before this was cool, before it was accepted everywhere. If someone were to tell the Parker Porter when you were fighting John Jones in the regional scene that one day you'd be fighting BKFC, there'd be a thing called BKFC allowed, would have you believed
Right.
them?
No, probably not. I would have been like, you're out of your mind. Like they're never they barely let this happen, especially back when I started. You got to remember when the UFC first started gaining some momentum and becoming a bigger thing, it wasn't even a legally sanctioned sport in all 50 states. And then on top of it, the last state in the union to actually sanction it legally on a state level was Connecticut. It was my hometown. So it's all the more reason that it really is such a nice thing to be able to fight at home and have a hometown crowd. So yeah, I definitely would have said you're out of your mind. This is barely legal anywhere in the country as it is. Never mind taking the gloves off.
When you look at the history within the United States, at least of, mixed martial arts, the bare knuckle platforms, a lot of people would say different reasons of what led it today. Some people say the Fertitas, Dana White. Some people say Conor McGregor. For you, what do you think are some of the reasons why this exploded to the point where it's at right now?
you know, the Fertitta brothers and Dana as a combined collective like did amazing work with taking the UFC from what it was when they got a hold of it to bringing it to the level that it is now. And then, with really mainstreaming it there, but taking it to a whole nother level by making fighters known as household names, like putting them on the same level as guys that are in the NBA or the MLB or the NFL, where your average person will know a big star name, like even if you don't follow the sport, you're like, I've heard that name, is that UFC stuff? You're like, whereas before that, even before guys like him came about and it started to have these kind of like superstars, it was still a very, kind of cloak and dagger niche sport where unless you were a fight fan, you didn't really know. You might recognize somebody like a Chuck Liddell or a Randy Couture, but it wasn't nearly as common as you have like today, where it's just such a regular thing. that and the frequency in which they put on the fights back then was you were lucky to get a pay-per-view every 3 or 4 months. That was like the consistent pace. They only did pay-per-views. It was only like once every 3 to 4 months, and then it started becoming more and more frequent. And then they got the weekly things going. And then they got the Apex going, and now they have fights every week. And now it's like, wait a minute, like now, where it's like we have like 2 or 3 weeks of no UFC fights at the end of the year, and people are like, well, what do you mean? It's gone the polar opposite of what it started out as.
Absolutely. When you look at obviously the rise of the UFC, you look at the rise of BKFC as well. I mean, this came into a thing when it first developed. Some people were like crazy. They see Artem Lobov and Jason Knight duking it out. And look at the consistency. You see shows every month, at least 2 or 3 of these BKFC shows.
Yeah.
Some huge names coming over. Obviously, Conor McGregor now, David Feldman absolutely killing it. What has been some of the secret success you think from BKFC? What are they doing that's working?
I think their marketing team is really on point there. They're getting guys. They've got a lot of talent to choose from. Guys are very willing to do it, and they're taking care of us too. Like they're not just like we're not disposable to them. Like nobody's untouchable, but they take good care of us, man. They do right by us. They're being active. They're really trying to build this thing into something that they know it can be, and I couldn't be happier with the way that it's going.
When you look at the BKFC rankings, you look at the divisions, some divisions stand out to me. That heavyweight division is so star-studded. I mean, you see Big Ben Rothwell defending that title here coming up, Andre Arlovsky. You have Mick Terrell in there, you have Todd Duffy in there, you have yourself in there. Do you think, with a big win over Garrett, are you getting close to fight the big guys? Are you right knocking on the door from those big names?
I would hope so, man. They've got me ranked number 4 right now. So I feel like, a big win over Garrett definitely puts me, in title contention, if not 1 or 2 more fights away from it, depending on who they've got lined up already. So, unfortunately, if it were up to me, I'd be, win this fight and then the next fight would be a title shot. But it's not up to me, so I got to see what the boss man Feldman has in store.
You paying close attention to that Arlovsky and Big Ben fight?
Oh, absolutely. Like either one of those guys could be the guy holding the strap. It's not that I don't care like, oh, I'm going to fight Big Ben or I'm going to fight Arlovsky. I want the belt. So it's whoever has the belt. That's where the target shifts to. So of course I'm going to be watching that. It's a title fight. So the belt could stay with Rothwell or it could change hands and go to Arlovsky, and then I got to set my sights on that guy.
When you look at you, man, you're a type of guy, you've accomplished so much in this sport. I mean, you have accomplished more than probably 99% of the people who tried, break in, and set out to do here. Obviously, found the UFC, biggest stage in martial arts. Now, find some of the biggest names headlining BKFC events. For you, you also own a very successful gym in the area, and you're trying to pay it forward and, making the next crop of great fighters from that area of yours. Why do you do it? You don't have to do this. Why are you still doing it?
I love this, man. It changed my life for the better in such an amazing way. The martial arts side of things is always the first thing that stuck out to me. I never got into this with the intentions of being a prize fighter and being a world champion. That was like an afterthought. I got into the training because I wanted to learn some self-defense. I was in the best shape I'd ever been in, and I didn't have anything to apply it to. So I wanted to see what I could do and learn some self-defense. And then I happen to be good at it, and it's the most focused and most driven that out of anything I've ever done. I played football, I played baseball, I played lacrosse, a little bit of deck hockey. Like this was the one thing where I was like, I could do better. I could work on this. This is already good. How can we make it better? It's just that kind of martial arts mentality of that constant pursuit of perfection, that level of self-discipline and composure. I wanted to be able to share that with everybody. And I'm not done, like I'm not too old to keep doing this. I still feel sharp. Obviously, as we saw in my last 2 fights, I'm still very competitive. I think I could reach that belt before I decide to hang it up. And I just it's what I love, man. It became my passion. It's essentially my PhD. I've been doing this for 18 years, training nonstop, even during the periods of my career where I had longer breaks in between fights. I never really stopped training. There was more time in between training sessions, but it's just a constant pursuit.
Obviously the fight scene's a lot bigger than what it is now than it was 20, 25 years ago. But well, very few people understand 20, 25 years ago, you didn't have high level gyms just anywhere. Now I feel like in a major city, you have a couple decent places kind of wherever you go now. Back in the day, guys just drive 2-3 hours. They move their whole life across the country because they didn't have a choice to do it. You're in a position now. You get to help share this message. You get to help promote. You obviously been in the game for so long. You know what talent development looks like. You're giving back. Is that the biggest sense of fulfillment, knowing that you're impacting the next generation and you're pushing the sport forward?
Absolutely. When I got into this, there was a lot of like trailblazing. I had to figure things out on my own. I had to figure out what was bullshit and what wasn't. I had to, there was no clear cut path of how to get to the UFC. There were ideas and notions, and a lot of it was trial and error. So, especially in the BKFC wasn't even a thing when I got into this. So now having all these high level promotions, these high level competitions and even the rise of jiu-jitsu itself on its own as a standalone, there's so many options for guys that are interested in martial arts, and I want to be able to give people a good, truthful, clear path how they can do it. Like, it's not for everybody in terms of competition, but the training aspect, absolutely everybody should be doing it. And that's one of the biggest things that we've established in the community that I'm building at my gym is everybody trains. It doesn't matter what your goal is. We all train. We all push to get better. Nobody's beating up on anybody if they're not on that level. We're all pushing each other and helping each other to get better in a positive way, which I feel like in a sport like this, especially, that's fucking violent. It's nasty, like you got to be an animal in there to make it as fun and have this camaraderie that we've built. It just brings a whole new level to it.
In 2023, obviously your last UFC contest following the loss against Tafa, you found yourself out. What was going on at that time frame? Was there any doubt in your mind that you'd ever do it again?
There absolutely was. I wasn't 100% sure. I've essentially been to the top of the mountain, in terms of MMA. And I was like, well, what do I do now? When you climb the tallest mountain there is to climb, it's like nothing really looks comparable. It's certainly not the same pay scale and the time and sacrifice that needs to be made in terms of the competition side of things. And then along comes BKFC with this opportunity, and it's like, well, it's not even a mountain climb. It's something completely different. Let's explore this. Let's go into this. And man, I couldn't be happier that I did.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people aren't well versed in the whole concept of taking gloves off. I feel like a lot of people think, all right, you look at the UFC, look at the gloved guys, some of the biggest, baddest guys, they take that gloves off, they're going to be unstoppable. But to me, it doesn't work like that. I feel like you could have some of the best glove fighters. You take it off, it's not going to translate it well. Why? Because I think it's all mental. I think bare knuckle fighting is all mental. I think you have to have that dog in you. For you, how important has the mental game been in this latest chapter of your career?
Dude, it's everything. It's everything. The mind game is the most important game. Skills can be developed, conditioning can be improved. You can even get faster by working on your speed and training everything, working on your reflexes. Those are all tangible. The hardest thing for anybody to really fully develop, if it's not a natural instinctive thing already, is that mind game. To have that, you're gonna have to kill me to stop me mentality, and not just turn it into like a blind rage. Like you have to be able to take that, like, I just got hit and I'm mad, I need to focus this anger into a precise counterattack, not just while out and start windmilling.
Absolutely. I think another really cool thing about the bare knuckle side of things is the striking itself. When you look at some of the bigger names in that area, the striking is so crisp. And I think, some of the casuals may think, take the gloves off, you swing as hard as you can, whatever. If you do that, man, you're going to break these. I think because cool, everything stems from the jab. Compared to where you were in gloved MMA now, training at this for over a year, do you feel your striking has improved to a point where it's been as good as it has your whole career?
I think it might be at the best. Boxing specifically, obviously, we're not throwing kicks or elbows right now. but the boxing and the dirty boxing, the inside fighting, it's this is the best I've ever been, and I'm still looking to improve. You know, like I said before, being that martial artist mindset first and foremost, you're always looking at how can I do it better? How can I do it faster? How can I do it sharper? How can I do it more explosively? Um, and it's a constant work in progress, and I feel like I'm still progressing, um, which is why I'm just going to keep going.
I really feel like you mentioned there with dirty boxing. I feel like the whole dirty boxing aspect is something that not a lot of people think about, but I think when you really look at from a bare knuckle rule set, I think people who can execute that thrive. You feel that's a very underrated component of bare knuckle boxing?
I do, and I think it's an element that coming from a mixed martial arts background, where the clinch is such a bigger portion of the stand-up game. I think it gives me an advantage. You know, that's why you're starting to see a lot of these guys come over from an MMA background and have such good success because they can really start to hone their actual boxing and work more specifically on that skill set. But then they have the positioning, the leverage, the you know the just the tactile feedback response that they have of that contact in that clinch, where you're not even really like thinking, you're just feeling everything and throwing your shots where they go.
Absolutely. So you're getting ready to take on Anthony Garrett. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent here?
I, I think he's just the next guy in line. He's going to be a tough guy to walk through. I mean, he's not going to walk through him. He'll walk through anybody. You know, at least you don't go into that mentality. But I'm gonna, I'm gonna go out there and get my hand raised in the best way that I know how. I'm gonna come forward. I'm gonna put my hands on him. He's gonna try and do the same, and it's gonna be who's got that head game on, who's ready to land that sweet shot.
Absolutely. I'm really excited for this one. When I saw him as the replacement, I got super excited. When you look at your guys' topologies, his last 3 fights haven't gone more than 2 minutes. Your last 2 fights haven't gone more than 2 minutes. I mean, to me, someone's probably getting finished here. Coming into this
Yeah,
one, do you have that mindset? Is that in your head? Someone's going down?
absolutely, absolutely. This is going to be one of those finish or get finished fights. He's definitely tough. I saw him get dropped in one of his fights, got back up and came back with a win. We saw the same thing out of me. So it's going to come down to, like you said, that mental aspect, having that dog in you, who really wants it the most, because you're bound to get clipped no matter what, especially when your hands start flying. No gloves, you can slip shots in where they normally wouldn't fit with gloves on, and they're going to land. So if you get dropped, who's going to keep getting back up, I think, is going to be the real question on Saturday night.
You get excited by these firefights? Like, does that whole aspect knowing, one shot, someone's going down, does that excite you?
Absolutely. Everything about this game excites me. It's fun, dude. And no, it's not fun to get hit, but it's fun to just the competition side, to go test myself every time to see, like, it's nothing's guaranteed. There's obviously odds out there of, like, oh, this guy's skill set or that guy's skill set, but nothing is a guarantee. Nothing's 100%. There's always a puncher's chance. There's always, you know, the fates are at work, weaving their webs and shit. And it's just the thrill of that moment where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's go find out.
Absolutely. For you now, both your times BKFC, finding your home area, the crowd, the applause, man, everybody on their feet. You're really turning one of those, like, as OGs, goats of that area. How cool is it now, later on in your career, establishing your name, being in the UFC, get to come back locally and get to fight in front of the hometown crowd?
It couldn't be better. Like, I've literally gone around the world to fight. Literally gone as far from home as I possibly could when I fought in Australia, in Perth. And, to be able to do it right here at home, hold it down and represent for everybody here in Connecticut and New England and all my friends and family that see all the sacrifices firsthand, to give them the opportunity to see it live and in person versus everything on a screen or, in the living room or at Buffalo Wild Wings or wherever you're watching the fights. That's the best part. And then to be able to walk out of the arena and hug my kids or my wife or high five a friend right afterwards, can't beat that.
Obviously your family's used to you being in this type of sport and competing. But what were their initial reactions to when you're telling them, "I'm going to continue doing this, but we're taking the gloves off"?
Yeah, it was met with some hesitancy. The twins, they just turned 12 in June, and so they're like aware enough to be like, "What? Huh? Like that sounds crazy." And then of course my wife was more, ironically, more concerned about me potentially breaking my hand than she was about like my face getting all scratched up. I'm like, that's not what I was expecting, but there we are. um, but they've been supportive. They don't always understand it. They didn't, especially didn't understand it at first, but now they get it a little bit more, and they've always supported, and they support more and more and more, and they get just as excited as I
Absolutely. You've been at it for such a long time, man. You've experienced the highs, the lows, the whole roller coaster of being in this environment. How has Parker Porter grown and evolved from his time competing?
do. Dude, those highs and lows, like the highest highs in the world. Like when you knock somebody out, whether it's in the BKFC or you finish somebody in the UFC, even just a undercard fight or in the prelims or whatever. Yeah, that's a huge high, huge. The lows are the ones that are like the roughest. Those sting the most. They last the longest. Those have taught me how to pick myself up even more. Like I've learned through a number of experiences in my life how to pick myself up from what felt like the lowest point ever. But those are constantly the ones where I'm like looking at things, learning to look at things logically as well too, not just through some kind of set of rose-colored glasses. Well, it just wasn't my day, or like everything has taught me like, all right, I made a mistake there. I made a mistake there. It's not that I can't do this anymore or that I'm past my prime. It's evaluating everything from a through an objective lens, or a subjective lens, not objectively. And that's been the biggest thing that has helped me evolve, as learning how to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. And when you're capable of something. The highs are great. The highs are great. A win is awesome, but they're fleeting. They you win, you're like, yeah, you're celebrating for 24, 48 hours, maybe a couple of weeks. People are, unless you're bringing home like a world championship belt, and that's what's keeping me going more than anything right now, is a taste of that goal. Is I want to get a taste of that and see what that's like.
Absolutely. One thing we're seeing in this day and age, so many eyeballs are on this sport, man. Our society embraces it. They love it. There's a lot of casual fans to the sport. And, to me, I can't really talk bad. I think combat sports needs as much as they can get. Sometimes what drives me a little crazy is like, I think as a society, we love sensationalism, right? I mean, people like seeing people get knocked out. They like the violence aspect of it. They like the blood. We crave it. Sometimes you hear guys yelling, twist them, and what, they boo.
Yeah.
I feel like a big thing that I'm trying to do is trying to show the audience that you guys are real people, man. This is a grind. You guys struggle. This isn't like any other sport. You try to have that aspect. Obviously you teach kids, you have a team, you have a gym in your area. Do you try to teach them what this actually is, like from the values aspect of it, the discipline aspect? You try that to make your focus of what this is?
Wholeheartedly, man. Wholeheartedly. It's not just, like a spectacle when you see these guys going out there, especially when you actually put in the time, put in the work, improve your skill set, sharpen your skills. There's a lot of emotion that goes into it, whether you win or lose. Obviously those are great emotions when you walk out with a W and you get your hands held high. But then there's even more emotion involved when you lose, and the casuals don't see or understand. I don't think they would probably give it a different level of respect if they understood a little bit more deeply about how much goes into preparing for a fight and how many sacrifices and how hard these guys work. So keeping that kind of sense of humility and always, trying to be as professional as possible is something that I'm constantly kind of preaching to my guys. I'm like, you gotta pick yourself up, dust yourself off, hold your head held, keep your head held high, and just get back to it, man. Don't, when people are gonna talk, that talk is cheap. Talk is cheap, and 9 out of 10 times the people talking the most are the ones that have no fucking clue what they're talking.
What do you want your kids to take away from this journey?
That their dad was somebody that they could look up to, not just from what he's accomplished in the ring, but through staying the course, seeing things through, and working his best to balance everything and still be there for them.
Absolutely. All right, Parker, last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what's the outcome Saturday night when you make your return to the BKFC Mohegan side when you take on Anthony Garrett?
That's definitely going to be a first or a second round TKO. TKO, KO, somebody's going down, man. It's going to be quick. He comes out, he puts heavy, fast pressure on. I'd like to do the same. So don't blink, because it's going to be a fucking good one.
Absolutely. Well, Parker, man, thank you once again. Really enjoy every time you come on here and chop it up with me. Can't wait to see the fight. Glad you're doing well, and it's going to be awesome.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. That's it for us today. I'm Carl Prusa. He is the king of the heavy hitters. He is Mr. Parker Porter. You can watch him Saturday night making his return to the BKFC. He's taking on Anthony Garrett. Don't blink, fight fans. It's going to be a quick one.